Welcome to Staying Sweet, the podcast. Tune into my weekly podcast to hear me, Alice Bradley, delve deeper into building your personal brand, up-level your mindset and tap into your highest potential using what makes you, you, all while staying sweet, of course. Whether you're looking to level up within an existing business, start something of your own, or create a fulfilling, balanced and healthier lifestyle, each episode will be curated especially to inspire and encourage your own success. Plus, don't miss out on the Staying Sweet specials, a series of exclusive interviews and conversations with Alice's network of entrepreneurs and brand owners. Don't forget there are new episodes every Monday. If you enjoyed the podcast, please do leave a rate and review. For more daily content, check out @StayingSweetPodcast over on Instagram. Stay sweet. Hey guys, welcome back to a brand new episode of Staying Sweet, the podcast. I hope you're all having an amazing week whenever you're deciding to listen to this episode. Welcome. And I have had pretty much the most surreal last few days of my life. It's been a bit of a whirlwind, so I thought best to catch up and of course share in today's topic, which I kind of think links quite well into kind of what I've been doing over the past couple of days. I've actually been away in St. Moritz with a private jet company, which is all very surreal and all will be explained in just a second. But yeah, it's just been a bit of a strange one in that I was thinking, how can I convey my experience of the trip and bring you something from it, so like a life lesson or a business lesson. And I was sitting down and thinking, okay, how can I talk about this and relate it to something in business? And the people that I was surrounding myself with over the weekend were all incredible, entrepreneurial, spirited people who have created brands and businesses that just make sense. And the only way to really describe what they've built is, being able to market yourself effectively and build a brand that is not only unique in itself, but has the ability to become a brand. And I think when you're creating a business, when you're deciding to start something of your own, it can be quite daunting and quite confusing really, because finding your place for yourself, not only in an industry, but deciding what you're going to look like, where you're going to position yourself, how you're going to sit in an industry. It's a real learning experience. So I found myself just really observing and taking in all the energies and the good vibes, and I found myself surrounded by these high value individuals. And I think that's what you have to kind of take into consideration. If you're in a room with people who are already business owners or are already creating things that are, of an entrepreneurial spirit, these are high value people that you should be looking at, observing, taking notes from. I think whenever I've read, a self-help book or a business book, I've always left feeling super motivated. And I do truly believe that energy attracts like-minded energies. And when you're marketing yourself, when you're building a brand, you want to know in your heart of hearts that you're building something that, is brand worthy. We can do a deep dive and look at particular businesses if there's any you have in mind at a later date. Today we're going to use the FlexJet branding just as an example because it's fresh in my mind, and I feel like I left feeling super motivated, but also I kind of felt like I don't want to play small. I want to be, surrounded by these types of high caliber people, this high caliber circle at all times. Like, why did I ever feel like I was not worthy of, starting my own business, building my own brand? And it doesn't matter where you position yourself, whether you're positioning yourself, as a super luxe brand like FlexJet, or whether you're positioning yourself in a market that's much more, approachable to the masses and of a mass market consumption. It doesn't matter where you sit on that spectrum. You still need to have the same belief in yourself. At the end of the day, every brand values itself, and without that, I don't think you truly can build a business. So we're going to be talking about marketing yourself, guys, when your brand doesn't even exist yet, or if there is something that exists in your business and you're sat here thinking, I don't really know my worth, this episode is going to be for you, because it's going to switch that energy back on. And I truly believe everybody at some stage will need to learn how to embody that energy and how to take up space in a room, because you will never truly value yourself if you don't believe your business is a brand. And that's where we're going to switch that on today. We're going to be talking about, how I found my personal brand, how I have nurtured it. And of course, I think and truly believe that over time it's going to evolve even further, and that's okay. But I just really want to, share in this knowledge, share in this energy and this frequency of just complete and utter abundance over the weekend. It was crazy. Just the level of abundance and the level of investment that people are putting in to small factors of their lives, like air travel and just getting from A to B. These people are jet setters. And honestly, having that experience of getting to an airport, being chauffeur driven to Farnborough Airport to get on a private jet, it was the most incredible high energy experience. And I travel a lot. I get on planes a lot. The experience, I love it, despite it being quite, hectic sometimes and quite demanding on the old mental health until you get to the destination. I realized that private travel is not necessarily just about sitting in a private plane and getting from A to B. It's about time management. It's about relaxation, believing that you're worthy of your energy and your time being precious and your time being valuable. So that truly, for me, was the asset and the just the takeaway of getting on a private jet. And don't get me wrong, like, I enjoyed taking my pictures and kind of indulging in that luxe life feel. But my real takeaway was people that invest in a private plane value their time. They value their energy. They don't want extra hassles. And I know, of course, this is, for the 1%. But if we can tap into that 1% energy, if we can believe that we have the power to market ourselves and be the 1%, you will attract your dream clients. You will attract your network. And honestly, I think in the things that I've been putting into play and with my vision board this year, it's all been about this high octane, high value network that is drawing me closer and closer to those types of energies. And I truly believe, when I've read business books, self-help books, and a lot of manifestation books, guys, it is all about energy. And yes, there can be some people out there, and luckily I didn't, brush shoulders with anyone that was unpleasant, but you're obviously going to meet people that are rude regardless. I was lucky enough not to. I actually met an incredible amount of people with such just pureness is all I can really say, and just willingness to talk about their business journey, talk about their brand that they've established, let us into this world. But it wasn't just about that. It was about believing that you are worthy of being there. And I just completely embodied the woman that would fly private. I showed up as her, and I think that's the difference. And that brings me really nicely onto my quote of the week, which is, if you don't know how to do it, pretend you are someone who does. And I know, guys, sometimes people don't like this fake it till you make it energy, but I think sometimes you need to do that. And when you're first starting a brand, you have to just start and believe that it already exists, and this isn't day one, because if you don't believe that, you will not give yourself the hype. You will not give yourself the belief that it can take off, that it can work. So people can detect that as well. If you start something and go, this is a bit awkward, not sure I believe in myself, not sure I can talk on Instagram stories, or I can show up and sell my product, I'll just, I'll share it to my friends initially. No, the minute you play small is the minute you show others that you do not believe in yourself. And that is not what we want to do here. We want to build a credible brand. We want to nurture a business that believes in itself. Because why would I spend my money and invest in something or someone that doesn't believe in themselves? So you've got to pretend to be someone who does know how to do something if you want to make it work. And this is what this episode is all about. So when I was doing my research and thinking about, okay, so I've had this experience on a private jet, I've experience the high vibration, the high energy, the luxe life. Wow, was it good? How do I tap into that? And what does that truly mean for me and my business? How can I apply that in my business? And the question that really kind of struck a chord in my mind was, do you niche down or do you become the niche when you build your brand? Because when you first start, the world's your oyster. You can go anywhere. Like, this podcast could have gone in any which way direction that I saw fit. The title Staying Sweet, what could that have meant for me? I could have been talking about opening a sweet shop, but no, I wanted to talk about personal branding and business branding yourself, building and scaling your personal brand for success. That ultimately is my niche. But how do you become the niche? How do you, as an individual or as a business, become the niche? And we're going to talk about that. So I think this is a really interesting debate because both are valid responses to building your brand. You can go super, super, super niche, create a business or a product that is so off the wall random that it is the niche. But you can actually flip it the complete other way and create something that already exists, operate in an industry or a sector or a niche that already exists, and just be the niche and work for the niche. So I guess when you think about it, they kind of blend into one. They kind of merge. But I think ultimately, when you are creating from scratch, you should certainly be streamlining yourself and focusing on a short-term and a long-term plan for your business, but also be open to identifying those niches as you operate, because you might find that in deciding you want to go in a particular area of a business, so for example, this podcast, Staying Sweet, is an entrepreneurial, business-focused podcast. That is the wider umbrellaed niche. In creating content, in just showing up in that space, I have had a natural flow and a natural pull to certain new niches within this podcast, within this industry. I could go anywhere. I could have started within this business entrepreneurship niche and decided I wanted to do podcasts on tax returns and financial budgeting and how to build a business financially. There might be some episodes dotted here and there in future podcasts, but it's not my natural flow. It's not where my passions have necessarily led me to. I've gone down the more sort of spiritual path, the personal branding path, and that's fine. That new niche that I was identifying and trying to find, I found naturally. And I think the only way you can find that within your business is just showing up, creating and experimenting. Not being scared to experiment. So when I was chatting recently with one of my clients, which, guys, I'm very excited. I've got some things coming up. Things are launching, and I've got a client that I'm currently working with, which is very, very exciting. She's actually my first sort of paid client in this particular area of what I'm launching. But she is somebody who I've been working closely with and actually building my own branding journey for this particular project, and it's going to be an ongoing project that all will become clear very soon. But we were talking about scaling an audience and growing an audience. Now, I've had an audience since 2014. I started my blog in 2014. The rest is history. I've been nurturing that audience. I could sit here and say, 11K, it's not that many people, but they're my audience and I respect and I value them. You could have 2 followers. That is your audience. Nurture those people as if they are 20,000 people and not 2 people. You have to learn to show up and tap in as if those people already exist. You have to build a brand that is long-term, not short-term. Now, within these niches of people and the people that you want to attract in your business, I think the best way to describe this is a circle. So just kind of imagine a circle with different bands. So we've kind of mentioned this before, I think, with one of my habit trackers. So let's imagine the outer band around the circle is your unengaged audience. Now, when I say unengaged audience, I mean your audience that you attract through creating viral videos, or perhaps their family and friends, they're following you because they're supporting you, and that's great, but they might not necessarily be your ideal customer, your ideal client, etc., etc. Those people are still vital to your growth. They're your starting point, they're the starting line. Those people will help you eventually find your people. When you're creating, you want to identify that unengaged audience, respect them, value them, because their likes, their, occasional views, their occasional story views, etc., they're going to build slowly your brand. And through the algorithm and through the creation of your business, your content is going to naturally be projected out to an audience. And this is why I say just show up and take messy action, particularly with platforms like Instagram and TikTok especially, because you have the chance to be thrown out to millions of people with just one video. And that's what happened to me. I'll be honest, it wasn't anything to do with my personal brand per se. It was to do with the 1975, but I still got 6.5 million. And now my other videos are tracking really high because those people, those 6.5 million people engaging with that one video that, yes, may not have been directly aligned with what I'm talking about on my post, etc., they have enabled me to find other people who have gone, oh, I quite like this page, I'm going to give it a follow. I have gained over 2,500 followers just from that video alone. Possibly more now, because I haven't actually checked recently. But how bizarre is that? How crazy is that? You have the power to attract your dream audience with your unengaged audience. So don't ever undervalue yourself. I could sit here and say, you know what, I've got probably 300 people that, 300 people might be a stretch, but possibly 300 people that I went to school with. They follow me, they like my content, they might not necessarily buy my products, they might not necessarily, buy my services, book in a photography session or, shoot with me. But they still watch what I do, they still like my posts, they still comment, they engage, they watch my stories, they keep up with my lifestyle. That's the difference. Your unengaged audience are so important to your business. So the next one is, it's quite funny, your floaters or your on the fences, your people that, could have you or could not bother following you. And they are usually found because of your unengaged audience, your audience that just are there because they're there. They might be recommended your content. They might naturally see your content because you're putting, hashtag fashion blogger on your content. And they follow the hashtag and they're seeing your content. They might occasionally like it. They're not pulled necessarily to, subscribe or follow to you. They might see your content, maybe save it down for inspo and think it's, relevant to them. These people are, again, really valuable. This is where you need to invest in yourself and invest in your service and what you're offering. Ultimately, in creating high value content, specific content that might align with them, is where you're going to get that final push that will make them click follow or make them buy your course or your product or whatever you're offering, your candle. Say, for example, they like the aesthetic of your candle business, they're going to click buy when you create something that, aligns with them. And then finally, in the center of your circle, the core, the most important people, I think they're all important, but the most important people are your ride or dies. And I think as well, your unengaged audience, your followers that just sort of follow you for the sake of following you or because they know you, are technically part of your tribe as well. Please don't undervalue them. Your tribe are the people that show up every single time. They enjoy your content, they listen regardless of what you're talking about, they show up, they want to watch all your stories from start to finish. These are the people that will buy your products. They will invest in you no matter what. So when creating and building that brand, you do need to experiment with a variety of different types of content, things that kind of access these different audience faces, these people that just are so broad. You cannot build a brand and know exactly who you are yet until you've experimented and dipped your toes. I do believe as well, easily interpreted and enjoyed content, high value content that's like, oh wow, that was really engaging. That is what will convert you and your business to sales and money and income. So I think when we're marketing ourselves as well, we don't realize how high value you and your face, your personality, your skill set, how important you are to the business and the brand. A lot of businesses aren't front facing, but think about the startups and the entrepreneurs that do it well. They start up and show themselves off first. They are part of the brand way before anything else. Your journey and your story and your day-to-day are all important elements of your lifestyle. Bring in those parts of your day, introduce what you get up to, show your audience who you are and how you connect that to your business, and you will build that relationship much more organically. I think another thing that you should focus on when you're marketing yourself, and I think possibly this should be done prior to sort of the new year, but fear not if you're listening to this now. I'm literally recording this now for you guys to listen to. So, take the advice when it shows up, and it's showing up now. But I think if you can get into the habit of knowing your goals before you start your year or start your business, that is going to make it so much easier to identify your brand. If you go in blindly and you say, I want to set up a candle business, but hang on a second, don't really know who's going to buy the candle and I don't really know how I'm going to make the candle. What are you doing? I don't know why I'm using a candle example, but I feel like that was quite a popular thing, I think, in lockdown. People started candle businesses, and the ones that did really well and took off created specifically niche, items, candles that no one else could buy. So being clear on your goals and reverse engineering your goals to become part of your marketing strategy and your branding strategy, that is where you're going to see success. So if I was to break it down really, those 2023 goals into two sort of sections, I would think about your growth goals that determine, follower count or, customers that might be investing and buying your product or service, social media hits, views, clicks, etc. All those types of metrics, I would write down those goals there. So an example could be, I really want to hit 10k followers. I know that's a really annoying example because you don't need 10k followers, guys, to be successful. It's a total myth. But let's put that on one side of the page. The other side is your revenue goals. Thinking about how much money you're going to make, how much money you're going to invest in your business. I also want you guys to do a deep dive on how you want to feel when you market your business and how you want your marketing to feel, because you might operate best when you're networking and you're talking word of mouth, you're meeting at events. I'll give myself as an example. I always get the sale and I always get clients through word of mouth, meeting people at events. Probably most of my clients are from word of mouth, or me actually meeting someone and saying, oh, by the way, I shoot content photography, I shoot business photography, I shoot headshots. They go, brilliant, let's get a booking in. That is where I operate out of my abundance mindset. That's when the sales come in. That might not be for everyone. You might actually operate better from a different method. You might operate better when you have a clear strategy, or you create an email marketing template. Knowing how you work and how you bring in clients and customers, that's part of your personal brand. I've seen really clever marketing tactics in many different businesses, and no two are the same. So think about how you're going to value yourself. If you're thinking about, a car salesman, for example, they make the sale through the gift of the gab. They are the word of mouth sellers. They make the sale when they get the customer in, they get the customer to have a test drive, nice little experience, talk about how amazing the product is or how amazing the vehicle is, and then they convince the customer to invest and spend the money. And if they're really good, they get them to make it from scratch and they create a custom car from the top. A natural salesperson is going to be very different to someone who might be more introverted or better suited to another strategy. And that's okay. Don't beat yourself up over how you're going to market your business. It's going to work for you when you show up in the best possible way for yourself. The next thing I want you guys to focus on when you're thinking about marketing yourself and building a brand that doesn't necessarily exist is really understand who your ideal client is. Who is showing up? Who is like the dream person that you'd either want to work for, work with, shoot photography for? All these things are integral. What are those people consuming? Who do they already go to that might have a similar product or service to you? If it's a candle business or a skincare product, what is your dream client already using on their skin to make themselves look glowy and fabulous? You know, is it a £60 serum? Because if it's a £60 serum, why are you charging £20 for it? You have to value yourself. And you have to think about what your ideal client or customer is already spending their money on. You also want to pick platforms as well that resonate with your audience. What are they consuming on a day-to-day basis in terms of marketing material? You know, product placement. Are they watching TV adverts, or are they consuming, adverts on podcasts, or are they consuming adverts on YouTube videos? Are they really old school? Are they reading, adverts in magazines and newspapers? Think about where your ideal client is showing up already, because that's where you need to be. And you need to wedge yourself in, because there's plenty of room for everyone. For some people, a website is much more important than an Instagram account. I do still think, though, Instagram does solidify that, security to somebody that it is a trusted business. Not that followers are everything, but I do think it helps. But you might be someone who actually makes the sale on a website versus on Instagram. There's no point marketing yourself on a platform if it doesn't value you, and also if you're not understanding how to access that audience. Because it's like we were saying earlier, when you throw stuff at the wall and nothing sticks, who are you reaching? You've got to do it at some point, and you've got to, try and test and experiment. But once you have that first hit of, okay, that video got 2,000 views versus my other video that I posted yesterday that did 200 views. Try it again. See if you get the same results. See if it attracts more people in that are in line with your brand. Think about what they're already consuming in that niche. Say, for example, you're a Gen Z fashion brand. What are people wearing? What are Gen Z influencers wearing? Start commenting on their videos. Tell them that you love their style and that your product would be really in line with, what they wear already. Show up in these spaces. Do not be afraid to show up and say, hey, I'm over here. Pay attention to me, because people will start to pay attention. And that is when you start to build that brand. And I get so excited by this because I've seen it with lots of people that wedge themselves into a space and they become the space because they are that powerful and magnetic. The only way you can truly do that is consume yourself. Consume content that already exists in your niche and in your industry. Take note, brainstorm often. Allow yourself to find blind spots in other people's content. What advice would you give instead? What product do you have that solves their problem? If it was TikTok, for example, and it was a skincare complaint, and somebody like, for example, Alex Earl, very, very big TikToker at the moment, she literally blew up overnight. Say, for example, she was talking about having breakouts all along her cheeks, but your product helps to, rejuvenate the skin and heal the skin. Comment on her TikTok, stitch her TikTok with your product. Do not just consume content, take action. Bring those things together and you will actually start to build a brand and you will start to exist within the space. Even thinking about the weekend and the people that I was networking with, the publications that I was sat beside and on my press trip with, incredible publications, incredible people with years of experience in the industry. But it was a safe space. It was an open space. There were brands at the snow polo event that I was at that weren't just FlexJet. There were other luxury brands present. There were alcohol brands. I think there were about 3 or 4 different alcohol brands there, none of which were looking at the other and thinking, oh gosh, I don't feel safe in this space. No, they all offered something different. One was whiskey, one was champagne. There was a coffee brand there. At the end of the day, you can exist in an industry, you can exist in a clientele space and offer something different. And the only way you can do that is by just taking up space, branding yourself, believing that your product will attract customers and clients and people that will pay for its value. Because this is another thing. Another thing that I've noticed with my recent client is that belief in yourself that you can charge what you can charge. I've noticed it in myself. The minute I raised my prices, particularly for my photography work, I think I increased my price by over 25% and I've got more clients than ever before. So what does that tell you? It firstly tells me that they respect and value why I'm charging what I'm charging. I'm attracting much more high frequency clients in that they show up, they pay immediately, and they pay me for my time. And that energy exchange is incredible. To have someone go, brilliant, thanks for the invoice, paid. No chasing, no, oh, I can't really afford to do that. It doesn't exist in this space because you are building a belief system. You are rewriting what your brand means and where it is placed and where it exists. And even if you are marketing yourself as a mass-produced product, your price is still important. You still need to believe that you're charging £9 for a reason. You know, you're not underselling yourself. You're placing yourself in the right position. Another thing that you really need to consider is looking into what causes your ideal client to buy. Like what pushes them to add to cart or to book in with you? Is it your portfolio? Is it work that you're sharing on your Instagram? Like when I create my photography portfolio, when I add work or I show up on stories, I get people DM me. Or when I work with a particular person, they share me on their story and I get 3 inquiries and then 3 bookings, which is what I had from a client last week. Okay, I've identified something there. When my current clients share me, I get even more work. Think about how you find that client and how you get that client to buy or that customer to buy. This is going to be woven into your personal brand. For example, again, going to use the candle company, guys. So for example, guys, I'm going to use the candle business once again because I think it's such a good example of, you know, finding out why your client buys. Look at the products that you're creating and your potential competition. You know, you might be creating 5 or 6 candles that are, you know, available in Anthropology or Urban Outfitters. But you have this one design that is super niche and very quirky or very on trend or just kind of works with your ideal customer. They want that candle because they've not seen it anywhere else before. They've not been able to find it elsewhere. They add it to cart and they spend the money. They spend because they want to be on top of the trend or ahead of the trend. Or they think it's such a unique product that they want to be the niche. There you go. That is why your client or customer wants to buy. If you were, you know, in a coaching business and your ideal client buys because they suddenly have a job interview that they need to be ready for, or they have a big audition coming up. If you offer confidence coaching or you offer, you know, a coaching service that's going to enable them to get better at public speaking, they need you now. They buy from you when they need help. You need to find these people that need your help and bring them on board. That's very different from the candle company. They buy because they want to be ahead of the curve. They want to be cool. Very different sales strategy. So starting from ground zero, I really want you guys to leave feeling like you've got a few final little tips to start, experimenting, brainstorming, getting stuck into your business and not being fearful of it. Being at the starting point of something, of an idea, of a vision, a passion, should not be scary. It should be so bloody exciting. You have the power to create something that nobody else can. Show up first and foremost, okay? Because you are allowed to evolve, you're allowed to change, upgrade, you're allowed to adapt an idea. You don't have to be stuck in your ways. Think about when the iPhone first came out. We don't still walk around with iPhones that look like the original iPhone, do we? We've gone through 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 different bloody models, and yet we still come back for more. Show up first and foremost, and you will be fine. You're also allowed to rebrand and re-strategize. Don't be fearful of a rebrand. And I've done a podcast episode on this before, so I will link that in the show notes for you guys to check out. But don't be afraid to rebrand. I rebranded this podcast. I changed the cover art. I kind of reshifted the positioning of this particular business. I started a blog when I first created Alice Lucy Bradley and Staying Sweet, but it didn't start as Alice Lucy Bradley. It started as Band Tees, Leather and Lace, which, take from that what you will. It does sound a little bit inappropriate. I promise you it's not. It was just my blog name, but it doesn't exist anymore. I'm using my namesake now. You're allowed to rebrand. You're allowed to re-strategize. The key is just starting anyway and trust that intuition. Trust where you're being led and pulled to, because you will naturally be able to evolve your business much easier if you go with your intuition and the people you meet, the lessons you learn, the education that you swat up on. I realized early on that having a couple of brand identifiers enabled me to be remembered, and I've kept them consistent at least. So, okay, I might not have Band Tees, Leather and Lace in my brand identity, but you guys know what Stay Sweet is. That's been there since 2014. My pink and my neutral colour palette, that's been around since about 2016, 2017. And the fonts that I use on my podcast marketing, I've had for a year. I've not changed. They still feel in alignment to me. They've become part of my brand identity. Everything becomes part of your identity. Think about your favorite brands that already exist. The fonts, the color palettes, the visuals. Sometimes they stray from those. Sometimes they rebrand. Think about all the bloody fashion brands in the last 5 years that have dropped all the accents off their branding, and they've gone from really, cursive fonts to block capitals, no accents. You've got Celine, you've got Yves Saint Laurent, which is now Saint Laurent, I believe. These brands weren't scared to change things up. It can happen, and it doesn't have to be a bad thing. Sometimes it might not go to plan, but it doesn't mean to say that you can't shift things again. You can't change gears. Don't think this is a forever thing. Growing a business is a forward motion, and it's experimentation, it's innovation, and it's moving forward. Keep learning, and your brand will exist when you show up and you stay consistent. So I'm just going to leave you with a final super quick checklist of just little key areas that you can explore in your own time for your brand. The first thing is identify your product and service. Very key. Probably the starting point, guys. Next is to identify your competition and your industry landscape. Look at where you are, what's existing already. Is the industry doing well? I remember my lecturer at uni telling me that the blogger space would be over in a couple of years, if not a year or two, and that was in 2018. And, we're racking in the billions now. And influencer marketing is one of the biggest industries in the world right now. So yes, think about your industry landscape, but take it with a pinch of salt. I think sometimes we can be, predicting things that we have no knowledge on. Get your information from factual sources. Look into things in finer detail. Don't just read things that are overhyped. Investigate. And you might actually find, niches out there. Niches that might be better aligned to your business. Next is to identify your audience. Who is your product and service for? The candle business, very different to the coaching business. Very different people. They might actually be the same person. This person might have a public speaking event, but also really enjoy buying candles. They might be the same person, but they want for a very different reason. So that's the difference. Next is branding. Think about your ethos. Are you a premium company or are you mass market? Are you FlexJet or are you EasyJet? Very different companies. Next is messaging. What language resonates with you? And what words, phrases, beliefs will you avoid? There are a lot of things, I wouldn't say a lot of things actually, but there are a few things that I would not talk about or I would avoid now in my brand, just as I've come to develop what my personal brand is. There are certain jobs, certain campaigns that come in that I have to say no to because they don't align with me anymore. It's okay if initially, maybe a couple of years ago, you would have said yes to it. That's okay. But if it doesn't identify with you now and it's not on brand, it's not part of your consumer journey. Messaging is key. And don't be afraid as well to evolve that. Sometimes you don't need to. Some products sell themselves and their slogan sticks with them for life. The next thing really is to look at your key factors of your product or service, because this will sell you before you sell yourself or your brand or your product. Is it a unique formula for a skincare product, or does your service offer something that's not available in many places? I actually had a astrology reading with Ashley from I Am Cosmic Girl, which again, I've got a interview with her on my podcast, which will be going live next week. And that interview is super exciting, but we also did a career-focused astrology reading. Now, how many people can you name that do that? That is a very niche service. There might be a couple of people out there, but she's in line with me on my vibration of my frequency. She's UK based. It's all these different factors that come into play that make me click purchase. And having a unique formula or a unique way of doing things, again, sells your product before you do and becomes part of your branding. And finally, distribution. How are you going to acquire those customers and those clients? Where will you find them? This is a big one, and we've touched on this today. And how will you distribute your product or service? Will you work full-time? Will you work part-time? Will it be a weekends thing? Will you be working remotely? Will you be selling a service that has already been created, but you've built the actual business strategy beforehand? So is it pre-recorded videos? Is it a class? Is it a course? All these different things will factor into your distribution funnels and how you share them with the world. So marketing yourself does not need to be scary. It doesn't need to be this crazy decision that once you've done it, it's set in stone and you can't wriggle out of it and you can't make mistakes and you can't evolve. Eliminate that from the forefront of your mind, and I promise you will find your brand much more naturally than trying to force yourself into a space. Take up space naturally. Become the space. Become the niche. As ever, guys, thank you so much for listening to the podcast, and I really do hope that you've got to the end of this episode and that it's been, of service to you. I really wish I had this knowledge back when I first started, and I didn't realize until a few years in that I needed to market myself as a business regardless of what I was creating. Now I would say I'm more of an umbrella. I'm on a journey to growing different avenues of my business, and that's again totally fine. But I really wish I knew that experimentation and finding my audience and finding those people that become your tribe is where you need to start. Thank you so much for tuning in to Staying Sweet, the podcast. If you enjoyed listening, please do leave a rate and review, and I will catch you next week for a new episode.